70% of people don't like what they do on a day-to-day basis. Pretty much everything that I know about personal finance and how to retire early, it feels good to have put all of my thoughts into one thing that I can then hand to someone, and all of a sudden I can just transfer the knowledge that I've gained over the past now 11 years at this point.
I think one of the best things about this book is the fact that it is a guidebook to reaching financial independence no matter your age. So I wish I had this in my 20s.
That realization just completely flipped any money notions that I had up to that point. And I was like, I need passive income.
Today on the Fit Rich Life podcast, we have Cody Berman, author of the new book, Retire by 30. This is actually his third appearance on the show. And we got to hang out at FinCon last year in Portland. And I'm so stoked to have him on the show because this man hit his financial independence number at 25. And he basically went from 0 to FI in 3 years, just like me, but like 10 to 12 years earlier, 10 to 12 years younger. And we're going to dig into all that. And Cody, so good to see you. So good to have you here. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me, man. It's been a while, and every time we've done a podcast before, I always leave smiling. My face hurts, so I know this is going to be a good conversation.
Yeah, and before we dive into your story, I just have to reflect on a couple things in regards to our friendship and our relationship. So I first met you because you were on a book tour with Grant Sabatier, who wrote the book Financial Freedom. And you guys came to my financial independence meetup at Stanford University. And that was the first time I met you in person. And then I believe you were guest number 2 on my show. And I was such a noob at podcasting that somehow I did not realize that I didn't have the nice mic connected. And I did the whole 2-hour interview off my shitty laptop microphone. And I didn't realize it until after. And I was just like, Jesus fucking Christ. I'm like, how do I not get the right microphone? So I'm excited to have you back on the show. We double checked the microphone, so we know we're good there. And to kick off things with you, why did you write the book now?
Good question. So I had this idea in my notes from September 2021. I have the screenshot. It says retire by 30. It had all the loose chapter outlines, and obviously a lot has changed since then. A lot of revisions, a lot of hours writing, a lot of interviewing. But it just kind of got kicked to the wayside. I'm sure you have stuff on your to-do list, Justin, that it seems important at the time. You're excited about it, but for some reason, other things just continue to get in the way. I know there's a couple of things like that for me, but when I was just after my 29th birthday, I'm like, okay, if I want to call this thing Retire by 30 and I don't publish it when I'm 30 or before, it's kind of lame, right? If I'm 31, if I'm 35 and I publish a book called Retire by 30, it just doesn't quite have the same ring to it. So it was honestly a race against the clock, even though I had this idea back when I was 25, like right before I hit my FI number. And yeah, man, it's just been something I've kind of always wanted to get something like this out there, because I've had so many one-on-one conversations. People ask me like, oh, how did you hit FI? And tell me more about side hustles. Tell me more about increasing your savings rate or investing. And I can send them a bunch of different podcast episodes. I can have a one-on-one conversation, but actually having a physical book that I can hand them, be like, this is pretty much everything that I know about personal finance and how to retire early. It feels good to have put all of my thoughts into one thing that I can then hand to someone. And all of a sudden I can just transfer the knowledge that I've gained over the past now 11 years at this point.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm both super impressed and mildly jealous because I too want to write a book, but I'm a patient person. And the fact that you did it gives me all the more reason to write my own book. So I'm really impressed, and I'm really, really happy for you. And I've read through the book. I got my copy here. I got some pages creased and marked to go back to, and I have some highlights that I'm specifically going to talk to you about today, because I think one of the best things about this book is the fact that it is a guidebook to reaching financial independence no matter your age. So I wish I had this in my 20s so I could retire by 30. But I can confidently say, even if I had never heard of financial independence and now at 44, I picked up this book, it has everything I need to know to get to financial independence in the most efficient manner, along with a lot of other good mindset and lifestyle guidelines and life design guidelines. So let's talk a little bit about the beginning of the book, The American Nightmare. What do you mean when you say that?
Well, everyone talks about the American dream, and I kind of went through the entire path. I got all the internships, I was in the finance clubs, I was just doing it all in college. I went through college, I was going to become an investment banker, but I ended up going into commercial real estate lending. I landed a job making 80K out of college back in 2018. And everyone's like, oh, dude, you made it. Like, you're making $80,000 a year. You're crushing it. But I'm commuting 2 hours each day to work on the train from central Massachusetts to Boston. I would show up at work, and most of my coworkers, my bosses, most people were pretty miserable. There was a study that came out recently. It was like 70% of people don't like what they do on a day-to-day basis. And that was definitely true, maybe probably even higher at my job. So I'm making all this money, but I'm, spending 4+ hours of my day commuting to a job that I didn't really like, my coworkers didn't really like. And I'm like, there's no way that this can be the American dream. This is not what life is all about. And on top of that, it's like, okay, you get the job, and now what? Now people tend to upgrade their housing, upgrade their car. And even if they are making $80,000 a year, they're spending $80,000 a year. And I was just like, I just took an honest look at kind of what my life was like, or what my life would be in a couple years from there. I'm like, okay, do I envy what my boss's life looks like? Because that's going to be my life in 5 to 10 years if everything goes right. And it wasn't at all. So I was like, this is the American nightmare. This is not the American dream. Like, I have zero control over my time. I'm going to this job that I don't like just to impress other people with purchases that I don't want to make. Like, I don't need a fancy car. I don't need this fancy house. I want freedom. I want independence. So that's kind of what I meant by the that first chapter, The American Nightmare. Is like, on paper, I looked like I was crushing it, and everyone said I was crushing it. And we'll talk about this more today, but like, when I left that job and went all into entrepreneurship, people called me an idiot. People said, you're throwing it all away. You just went to college for 4 years. Why would you possibly quit this $80,000 per year corporate banking job? Ended up being the best decision I ever made, but this is just the American dream that we're sold. And unfortunately, for most people, it's a nightmare.
It's crazy. The more we talk about this, the more similarities between your path and my path. So I did investment banking I did about a year and a half worth of internships. And I had the same realization as you. I looked at the people who are 5, 10, 15 years ahead of me, and I asked myself, is that the life that I want? And immediately knew absolutely not, because they're out of shape. They were prematurely aging because they were working so hard, so stressed out. They made amazing money, but they spent all their time at work. They weren't with their families. They weren't in good health. And honestly, similar to your experience, they didn't seem very happy to me, even though they quote unquote had made it. So it's pretty cool how similar our stories are. And I got distracted because instead of discovering financial independence, I discovered the Hollywood nightclub business. So I had
Quick
a
little detour.
I had a little 7-8 year detour side quest that was really fun. And it taught me all about looking rich instead of getting rich. But you bypassed the looking rich phase and really did it right from the beginning. So I want to hone in on two things. Specifically, one, and this will probably lead to the next one. Tell me about how the book or how your mom recommended the book, The 4 Hour Work Week. Like, to me, that's just crazy that your mom even knew about the book.
So she had always known that I was the entrepreneurial type. Like I was the type who was setting up lemonade stands. I was helping my uncle at his Christmas tree farm. Actually, I was selling hot chocolate. I didn't even have a more than the lemonade stand. I made way more money with a hot chocolate stand with my brother. But she just knew I was always an entrepreneur. And I honestly don't know. I should probably ask her how she discovered the book. But I think she just knew. I was a sophomore in college. She's like, Cody, I think you'd love this book. This guy's talking about all this craziness. He's hiring people from Southeast Asia to help him with his business, and he can work from anywhere. And this is way back before this stuff was commonplace. Like now in the entrepreneur realm, like it's not that uncommon for people to hire overseas help or work remote. But in 2007, when that book came out, it was like groundbreaking. So she just knew that I would be interested in the book, and I devoured it. I listened, or I think I read it, or I listened to it, and then I read it because I wanted to see all the charts and stuff that Tim was talking about. I'm a big audiobook guy. But that book just like completely changed the way I thought about money. I know you mentioned Tim Ferriss was also a huge turning point for you. Like growing up, I would always think that the richest people were the people making a high dollar per hour. It was like, oh, a doctor makes $250 per hour, a lawyer makes $300 per hour. But the way Tim talked about it, it was like the richest people don't trade their time for money at all. Like Warren Buffett could sit on his hands for a year and make more money than like everybody else in the world who's like working so hard to actively make income. And not to say that Tim Ferriss is Warren Buffett, but he had this idea that like you could spend your time, your energy, your money to buy or build businesses that would then pay you in perpetuity. And like that realization just completely flipped any money notions that I had up to that point. And I was like, I need passive income. Like I need to build a business. I need to figure out how to get things or build things that are going to pay me whether or not I'm working on them. So yeah, shout out to my mom. I don't know how she discovered it, but she knew that I would like the book, and the book ended up completely changing my life.
Yeah, that book, I read it and absolutely loved it, but it took me a lot longer to take action on the ideas. I understood the whole new rich concept of having time freedom and optionality and flexibility, but when I read it, I was in the nightclub business and I was completely intoxicated by all the flashy, shiny objects that were there, including everyone looking rich. And I grew up very poor. And even in high school, I remember driving an hour and a half to go to Ross and TJ Maxx so I could get the Ralph Lauren and the Nautica clothing and all that stuff and buying Abercrombie and Fitch from the sales section to make it look like I wasn't as poor as I was. And I had to go through that in my 20s of really leaning heavily into the looking rich phase. But I was that Tim Ferriss's book planted a seed in my mind because similar to you, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I think you went more hardcore than I did, which is one of the reasons I think you did it at did financial independence at such a young age. But I guess as I say that, I went into the nightclub business, built my own business within that industry. So I guess I just got distracted with looking rich is apparently what happened to me. All right. So let's circle back to actually quitting your job. So I know you realized that you were living the American nightmare. Walk me through a little bit more, like, how did you actually get up the courage to go in and quit?
Two-part answer. So one was the money side. So unlike it sounds like you in the nightclub business, I was not spending my money at all. Like I was extremely frugal on the big three, what I call them: the housing, transportation, and food. I was spending next to nothing. Like while I was working that corporate job in Boston, I was spending like $1,200 to $1,500 a month. I didn't get a fancy apartment in Boston. I didn't upgrade my car. I was still driving the same paid off car. I was, pretty strategic with my grocery shopping, and I was rarely going out to eat. And when I did go out to eat, it would be like I would split an app. or I'd split an entree with my girlfriend, now wife Lauren, or we go out like drinking with friends, and people would be like spending hundreds of dollars, and we get like one or two. So it was like I was still doing stuff. I don't want people to think that this path is a path of deprivation. Like you just have to be a little bit more creative. But long story short, from the financial side, I was only spending like $1,200 to $1,500 a month, and during that horribly long train commute in the morning. It was a 2 hour train ride in, 2 hour train ride home. And so basically during the train rides and after I get home from work, and sometimes during my lunch break and while I was at work, don't tell my boss, but I was working on my side hustles. Like I was building a podcast, blog, I was doing a bunch of freelance work. And so by the time I'd quit corporate, I was bringing in about $1,200 to $1,500 per month in side hustle income. Now, if you remember, that's pretty much exactly how much I was spending each month. So I was just banking everything that I was making from my corporate America job, my $80,000 per year job. I ended up only working there for 7 months, but I was able to save $35,000. Now, doing some quick math, I'm like, okay, 35,000 bucks. Like, if I'm spending $1,200 a month, that's like almost 3 years of entrepreneurial freedom that I can go try my hand at as many ventures as humanly possible. So, on the financial front, I had this nice financial cushion, which nice is relative, right? Like, some people might think $35,000 and you quit, you're insane. But my expenses were so low that I felt pretty secure. But the mindset piece is also really important here because some people will ask me, they're like, okay, well, it sounds like the key to success here is like quitting your job. It's like not necessarily. Like the only reason why I felt so confident that I could make money in entrepreneurship once I quit was because I was making money in entrepreneurship. I'm like, okay, if I'm making $1,200 to $1,500 per month now, what happens when I get those 60 plus hours per week back from that corporate job that I can then spend on all the same things that I'm already doing that are making me that money? So like it was a two-part answer where like on the money front, I felt pretty secure because I was so frugal. I had this big stockpile. And then the mindset piece, I knew that I could already make money with entrepreneurship, albeit it was kind of small, $1,200 to $1,500 a month. But I already had the proof in the pudding. I was like, if I can do this with a full-time job with a 2 hour commute each way, I'm going to be able to make way more once I get all those hours back.
I love it. So one of my favorite lines in the beginning part of the book is, and I'm paraphrasing here, your boss told you that you were a waste of time and resources when you went and told him you're quitting. How did that land then, and how does it feel now?
Oh, I mean, I already didn't really like him too much, so it wasn't like it was this guy who I looked up to and it just crushed me. Like he was already kind of a dick, so I'm like, fuck this guy. But yeah, I mean, I wish he was listening to this podcast or seeing any of the content I have nowadays because like he was just miserable and he was making probably like I don't know exactly, probably between $300,000 and $400,000 a year. Like again, quote unquote, crushing it, living the American dream. He had like multiple vacation homes, but this guy had picked me out of a sea of characters that he'd met at different colleges and internships and whatnot, and give me a signing bonus, and he thought I was going to be like his prodigy or something. And then I ended up quitting after 7 months. So I think out of rage, he ended up saying that I was a waste of the company's time and resources. So yeah, but he sucks. So it didn't really sting too bad, and I don't feel bad at all. I have no idea what he's doing now, but he's probably in the same position, probably still complaining about his wife and his family and how he doesn't see them enough. And again, he was in horrible shape. So yeah, that guy can screw.
I love it. So did you get to keep your signing bonus?
So I wasn't supposed to, but I don't know what the statute of limitations is on it. I still kept that $10,000 signing bonus. They were supposed to like reclaim it, claw it back if I left within the year, but they never asked for it, and so I never mentioned it.
That's amazing. I love it. Okay, so just in case someone listening to my podcast for the first time doesn't know what FIRE, FIRE is, what is FIRE in your own definition?
Okay, so FIRE is financial independence, retire early. I like to focus on the first part, which is the financial independence, because I'm still working on projects. Like I know the book's called Retire by 30. I like to think of retirement as you have the option to work or not, and then you can just basically make a decision. You can still work on projects that excite you or not. You can also just sit on the beach and hang out. Like The world is your oyster once you hit this magic number. Now, there's two ways to calculate this magic number. This is your financial independence number, your retirement number. There's a lot of different verbiage out there for it, but there's two main ways. There's one is the nest egg method. So that is when this is kind of the traditional approach to fire that a lot of folks like Mr. Money Mustache, which I know was a kind of a huge figure in your own journey, Justin, like discovering him early on. A lot of the OG fire folk use the nest egg method. So what they do is they would save up 25 times their annual spending. So let's say you spend $60,000 a year. 60,000 times 25 is 1.5 million. You need 1.5 million dollars invested in the stock market, and based on a bunch of complicated math equations, you never have to work again, assuming that you just live on that same like $60,000 per year. So that's the nest egg method. You save up and invest 25x your annual expenses, and at that point, you are FI. You no longer have to work. The other way that I'm a huge fan of, and we can talk about this more, is the cash flow method. So with cash flow FI, all you have to do is build up enough passive or semi-passive cash flow each month to cover your expenses. So if you're spending $5,000 a month, same example as before, $60,000 a year, you need to figure out how you can earn $5,000 a month from passive, or at least mostly passive income streams or side hustles. Like this could be through real estate or through small business or through digital products. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but that I've seen people hit FI via the cash flow method in a year and a half or 2 years. We can talk more about that. Like it's because of leverage and just you can get your to cash flow FI faster because you don't have to save up this massive nest egg that's going to support the cost of your lifestyle forever. For me personally, I did like a combo approach where I had a pretty good nest egg invested in the stock market, but I was also going after this cash flow FI via real estate and digital products. And that's what allowed me to hit that FI number at the ripe old age of 25.
Yeah, and in the book you mentioned you had 5,000 or 500,000 invested in the stock market, predominantly index funds.
Yep.
You were making 3,700 a month from real estate. You're making another 10,000 per month from digital products, and all of that.
All that was way more than I was spending per month. So at that point, I'm like, okay, me and my then girlfriend, now wife Lauren, just like kind of looked at all our numbers. We're like, I don't think we have to work anymore. It's like the craziest feeling once you calc it out. I'm sure it was the same for you. Like once you hit that FI number and you look at all the spreadsheets, you look at all the compound interest calculators, once it really hits you that like I do not have to trade my time for money anymore. I can make decisions based on other things, like just how I want to live my life and what excites me on a day-to-day basis. It was one of the most freeing and scary feelings.
Yeah, and I'll make one side note to further explain your definition of financial independence. So if you have 1.5 million invested in the stock market in broad-based index funds, you can technically take out 4% per year of that 1.5 million, which would be $60,000, adjusted for inflation each year after that. So first year it'd be 60,000, second year it would be 60,000 plus whatever inflation is. And essentially you can do that in perpetuity. So that's what Cody means by 25x your living expenses. It's just the reverse of or
yeah.
inverse, yeah,
25x or 4%
rule of thumb.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I do want to dig into cash flow FI because I think that is so underestimated, because I think nowadays, especially with the ability to create a business around almost anything online, it is the fastest path to quote unquote financial freedom. Because again, if you're doing a business that you built online around one of your interests or passions and it covers your cost of living, you might not have $1.5 million saved and invested in the stock market, but you're free in the sense that you don't have a boss. You are your own boss, and you've built a business around one of your interests or your passions, and it may or may not be very passive. And I think many people can get there in 1 to 3 years, whereas most people, it's going to take about 10 years or so working a 9 to 5 and investing in the stock market. You might be able to do it a little bit faster if you're crazy like me. Or you might be able to do a little bit faster if instead of the stock market, you work a 9 to 5 and invest in real estate, but that's a whole lot more work. So give me your thoughts on the cash flow FI.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad you're saying all these different strategies because I hope you got this from the book too. Like, what I tried to lay out was not you have to do this side hustle and you have to invest in this. Like, I just tried to lay out a menu of options based on the 300 plus people I've interviewed on my podcast. And we both have so many friends in the space who have done it so many different ways. I wanted to give people, like, here's a million different ways to do it. Pick your path. Like, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to invest in real estate. You don't have to sell digital products. You don't even have to have a side hustle. Like, there's so many different ways to do it. And so I'm kind of glad it sounds like you got that message is like, I just wanted to give people, here's the buffet. You guys can put whatever you want on your plate and just run with it. To answer your question more directly though, yeah, I think the fastest way is probably you need to increase your income. The fastest way to increase your income, unless you're in some crazy 9 to 5 with like hyper variable income, which I think was your case, you're probably going to have to lean into entrepreneurship. I have seen some folks who are in like non-variable roles. One is actually my podcast co-host, Justin, other Justin, but he hit FI in 7 years, just like regular old corporate 9 to 5 job. He was getting raises and stuff, but he didn't have like a crazy variable comp. He wasn't like a sales guy. And he was able to hit FI in just 7 years. Another friend is James, and I was on the podcast before talking about health and fitness with James Lowry. Him and his wife Emily, they hit FI in just over 2 years, and they were investing in real estate. So they were working 9 to 5s, investing in real estate, and because of the power of leverage, which I'll get into an example in a second, they were able to hit FI after they accumulated, I think it was like 13 rental units in Huntsville, Alabama. So like there's so many different ways to do it. You can make money in entrepreneurship, invest in real estate, make money in entrepreneurship, invest in index funds, make money in W2, invest in real estate, index funds, buy a small business. Like there's so many different paths to get there. I would say choose your path of least resistance. Like don't listen to this podcast and be like, oh, I have to invest in real estate or I have to do X, Y, or Z. Like there's so many different ways to get there. So if you have a real aversion to any of the things we're talking about, I promise you that there's probably another path that floats your boat. But back to the thing about leverage. So this is why you probably hear people talk about real estate, and people who love real estate, they really love real estate. But I just like presenting it as an option because I'm really like, I'm so anti when someone's like, oh, screw the stock market or, screw a 9 to 5. It's only entrepreneurship or it's only real estate. Again, I like to give people a menu of options. But let's just use a real example. Let's say you have $100,000 or let's do $200,000 because this is a real scenario for me. Let's say you have $200,000 to invest. You can either invest in index funds, just throw all $200,000 into index funds and using the 4% rule. Oh gosh, live public math. Using the 4% rule, you could live on like, is it $16,000 a year? No, it's like $8,000 a year. Like 4% of 200,000, like $8,000 a year, right? Or this is exactly what I did with this chunk of $200,000. You could use $200,000, use them as down payments on properties. And so I was able to acquire 11 units in the Connecticut, Massachusetts area with $200,000 as down payments. Now, again, these are down payments, so I'm using leverage. I am getting a lot of debt from the bank, but from those properties, I was able to get $3,700 a month in cash flow after all expenses, like after PITI, principal, insurance, taxes, and insurance, CapEx, reserves, all that stuff. I was bringing in $3,700 a month from $200,000 down. Again, because some of these properties, I'm like, all you have to do is put 10 or 20% down, and then you own this asset that you just quote unquote bought for like 60K, even though it's a $300,000 house. Now, what I will say is leverage is a double-edged sword. It can be very dangerous. If you're someone who gets over leveraged, this is kind of what happened in like the 2007, 2008. If you have too much leverage and you own all these houses and you just put like a tiny bit of cash down and then the market crashes, then you're screwed and your house might be underwater and you might have to, pay that mortgage back. So I know I'm kind of rambling on here, but leverage is a double-edged sword. But the reason why it can help you achieve FI so much faster is because you can buy a $500,000 asset for $100,000 down, and then the bank lends you the other 80%.
Yeah, and I did the math as you're speaking. So you're taking 4% of 200,000 invested in, say, index funds, which is 8,000 a year, or you're taking that 200,000 and accumulating, I think you said 11 properties.
11 units. It was
11 units.
Yeah, 3 triplexes and a duplex. Yeah.
Which gave you $3,700 a month,
Hmm.
or $44,400 a year, which is 5.5 times, actually 5.55 times what you were getting from the index funds. Now, here's where I want to step in and say, I would never do that, because the amount of work Cody had to do to get those 11 units, get them rented, rehab them, maintain them, is infinite more work than I would ever want to do,
100%.
because I just was never interested in that type of work. Because, as Cody mentioned, I was one of those variable comp salespeople. I could just go put that effort into selling the next multi-million-dollar deal and literally collecting $100,000 off of one deal, and then just go lock in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more of those in a single year. And holy shit, suddenly I've made $800,000 in a single year. So Cody wasn't in that position, though. So he took a different route, but he was smart. He ran the numbers and he realized that his interests, his skill set aligned with the business of real estate. And one of the things I really admire about you, Cody, is your fascination with business in general. The fact that you've built multiple different businesses, which I do want to talk about all the different side hustles. We talked about this in the first episode, but I want to go revisit because I think it's fucking hilarious how many things you tried and failed at before you started to find the things that worked. But the fact that you've done real estate, you've built digital businesses, you've done physical product businesses. And so that's what I want the audience to take away, is to recognize your specific strengths and weaknesses, and then how do you take those strengths and use them to multiply your money making, because that's what's going to get you to FI the fastest. Is not doing it like me, not doing it like Cody, but looking at yourself and picking from the buffet of the book a set of things that will radically amplify your time to achieving financial independence. So, Cody, I know you've tried a fuck ton of different businesses before you started to find ones that actually worked out. And this is the other thing, is people think the first business or side hustle they're going to try is going to be the one that makes everything. How many side hustles did you try that failed?
I have probably tried, I actually don't know the exact number, 30 plus, 35 plus. I have them all listed out in the book. I could do a rapid fire, but dude, I've tried like every single type of side hustle imaginable, and I just can't help it. I'm like such a dabbler. And that's probably why I went into real estate in the first place, was because I saw other people doing it. And I'm like, I could probably do that too. So even in real estate, like I've tried everything. I've done short-term rentals, long-term rentals, flips, syndications. I've done hard money lending. I've done, what else have I done in there? I'm like, maybe that's everything. But again, I've done REITs. And then yeah, on the side hustle front, I've done like in-person physical side hustles. I've done like buffing boats. I worked for my father-in-law's business, buffing boats. I've done Christmas. I was baling Christmas trees for my uncle. I still do that. I had like all the young side hustles, like the hot chocolate stand. Like I was doing things like that. We had a vegetable stand at one point. Um, Also, like once I discovered kind of the online space, I started doing a bunch of freelance stuff. I was doing freelance podcast editing, freelance website building, freelance writing, freelance research, freelance affiliate marketing, freelance. I was just like basically just selling my time for whatever I could get. And I was working like at this point 16 to 18-hour days. I was insane. This is back when I like in the early days when I first started. Um, what else have I done? I had a disc golf
Disc
manufacturing
golf.
company. Yeah, you
Yes.
were talking about. So I've always been a disc golfer because I grew up across the street from a disc golf course that my uncle and cousin owned, and always been a disc golfer. And so when Tim Ferriss is like, align your business with something that you're passionate about, something you know a lot about, I'm like, ooh, disc golf. After a couple other failed businesses, I had a tutoring business that failed. I had this you'll love this one. I had this $1 million business idea. It's called Sleeveless, and it was going to be basically every type of wear, but like without sleeves. So like think of like a polo shirt, no sleeves. Suit jacket, no sleeves. Uh, just
Dude, I would have loved that. Where you should have sent it to me. I would have been your #1 customer.
I know. Unfortunately, we weren't friends back then, but yeah, I've tried and like ideated so many different businesses. Ended up landing on the disc golf manufacturing thing. I've since closed that business. Actually, we ended up selling the like disc molds to another company, but that business just taught me so much about entrepreneurship and building websites and sales and pricing and distribution and how much of a pain in the ass it is to run a physical products business. And you'll get units that are shitty and people complain. And it taught me so much. But long story short, I have tried a million different side hustles, and I would definitely not be where I'm at today without having failed and figured out what I liked and what I didn't like. And not to say all of them were like complete failures, but I'm like, I actually hate freelance writing. This sucks, even though like I'm making decent money from it. So I tried it. I learned. I probably became a better writer. I built relationships, but it was something that's now on the shelf. And so today I actually like really kind of focused my efforts into a couple of things that make me a lot of money versus 20 plus different side hustles that make me a little bit of money. Now it's mostly like digital products. That's like my main one. I have a Gold City Ventures is like my main business. We have like a whole template shop and a course and community. I have my own like multiple different Etsy shops that I sell digital products through. Real estate is probably number 2, where again, I've tried everything under the sun. And then the third one is kind of my like personal finance education, if you want to bundle everything together. So that includes like book, podcast, all the stuff I do on social media. And those are pretty much where I spend a majority of my time now versus before where it was like, I was just, again, spending as much time as I possibly could just to get a buck. Like if I'm like, oh, I could spend 30 minutes and do this little freelance thing and make $50, I'm in. And now it's just, I think you can agree, like I just go after the more higher leverage activities that are going to earn me like multiples over that. Like kind of what you were saying with your sales job. You're like, oh, I could try all these other side hustles, or I could just crush this deal, make an extra 100K and not explore 10 different side hustles that are going to make me like a couple $100 a month. So I have since narrowed my focus a lot, but I think trying the 30 plus side hustles really just helped me learn a lot about entrepreneurship in general and networking, business building, and all the same skills that I'm using today.
Yeah, and that's the point I wanted to underscore is the fact that you tried and failed at so many different things. It gave you the experience, the expertise, the knowledge, the wisdom to eventually make a ton of money from your entrepreneurial endeavors. But you had to go through those trial and failure
Yeah.
to get to the big money makers. And so that's what I want the listener who's interested in having a side hustle or doing some entrepreneurship is it's not about picking the perfect thing to start. It's about starting and failing as many times and as fast as possible until you find the few or even the one that really does make a lot of money. And then once you find that one, you put a lot of time and energy into maximizing that 1, 2, or 3 different endeavors. And it's exactly what I did with my sales job is I thought about all these different potential side hustles, but then I was like, I'm sitting on a freaking golden goose. Why don't I just get this golden goose laying as many eggs as possible? And that is, again, what you should do. So I've said this in other podcasts, but I think a commission-based, performance-based sales job is one of the cheat codes to financial independence. It will get you there really fast because your ability to make a ridiculous amount of money is there, especially if you're in B2B tech sales, because it's just the size of the deal is so large that you only need to close maybe 5 to 10 deals and you've done 10 million in sales and you're collecting 5 to 10% of that, which is 500 to a million right there. But none of that matters if you spend all your money, which is what I suffered from in my 20s. In my 20s, working in the nightclub business, I made a ton of money. I made $150,000 to $300,000 back in 2007, which now with inflation is probably $500,000. But I freaking spent all of it and more. So I left that industry at the end of 2013 to go back and finish an uncompleted degree at Stanford University in debt. So let's talk about the gap. So you write that the gap is the engine of financial independence. Why is that the master metric in your opinion, Cody?
This is the most important thing in personal finance, but so many other things get all the attention. Like, there's actually this really cool graph that, do you know Jeremy Schneider from Personal Finance Club?
100%. Big
So he had
fan.
this awesome graph, and it's this pie chart, and it was like the things that matter in personal finance, and 49% of it is like your income. The other 49 is like your expenses. And then there's this tiny sliver that's like what you invest in. But that tiny sliver is what gets all the attention, all the hype. I mean, even we're talking about it today. It's like, oh, real estate versus index funds versus individual stock investing versus options trading. Like, people love talking about that sliver, but what really matters early on in your journey is the gap. Like, if you are, let's say you're making $100,000 a year and you're spending $50,000 a year. So let's say this is after taxes, just for simplicity. Let's say $50,000 gap. You could invest in something that's like subpar, and some other guy or some other gal who's super fancy, they're into options trading and individual stocks and doing all this crazy stuff. And maybe they earn 1 or 2% more per year on their investments, but they're making $100,000 and they're spending 95. So they only have $5,000 to invest. You have 50. Guess who's going to get to financial independence way faster than the other person? It's the person with the huge gap. It's not the person with the fancy investing strategy. So like, this gap, what separates your income and your expenses, is in the early years the most important thing. Now, I've had other people argue with me. It's like, well, when you have $10 billion and you make an extra 0.1%, it's like, okay, well, if you have $10 billion, then just don't listen to me. I could probably learn a lot from you, right? It's like, sure, if Warren Buffett can eke out an extra 0.1%, then he's going to do it. But for us lay folks who are starting from not $1 billion, like, what really matters is how much you can invest per year. So going back to my journey, like those first couple years in entrepreneurship, my income was doubling year over year over year. My first year of entrepreneurship, I had the numbers. I went back through my tax returns for the book. First year of entrepreneurship, I made $96,000. Second year of entrepreneurship, I made $192,000. Third year in entrepreneurship, $198,000. Third year in entrepreneurship, made $403,000. My expenses for all 3 of those years was less than $2,000 per month, less than $24,000 for the year. So like, during that last year when I made 403K and spent 24, I had 370 plus $1,000 that I was driving into the stock market, into real estate. And like, that is the fuel. That's the engine. That's what allowed me to achieve financial independence so early. It's not because I had some crazy crypto strategy or because I figured out what stock was going to be the next big rock star. It's literally just because of that gap. So like, the faster people figure that out, that the things that really matter for hitting financial independence is, maximizing the difference between what you earn and what you spend and then investing it into something, the better. And the faster you'll be able to hit FI yourself.
Yeah. And this is what unlocked financial independence in 3 years for me, was understanding this. I refer to it as the golden metric to FI, your savings rate, which is the same thing as the gap between your income and your expenses. And you and I were both influenced by Mr. Money Mustache's article, The Shockingly Simple Math Behind Early Retirement, which outlines how many years it takes to get to financial independence, early retirement, or where all work becomes optional. Because similar to you, I never wanted to retire, but I did want all work to be optional. And at a 5% savings rate, I forget what it is, but it's like 60, 100 plus years. I forget what it is, but basically,
yeah, I'll pull it up now.
yeah. The point is, and this is why no one wants to do the frugality, but in the beginning of your journey, it is the biggest lever is getting your expenses as low as possible, getting your living expenses cut to the bone. And what I did is I told myself I could always bring the expenses back, but let me just ruthlessly cut everything out. And people know this. I didn't eat out at restaurants unless someone else was paying for 3 fucking years, because I knew each 20 to 50 to $100 meal was 20 to 50 to $100 more I could put into the stock market. And yes, $50, $100, not that much one time, but let's say I eat out 3 times a week. That's 52 weeks. That's like 165 times a year times, let's just say on average I do 100. I don't know what 100 times 165, but
Like
it's
16,000.
like
Yeah.
16,000 fucking dollars invested in
Yeah.
the stock market. Like, and again, you don't have to be good at math to get to financial independence, as Cody and I have struggled to do math multiple times in this episode. The point is, it really is a superpower, frugality, in the beginning of your financial journey. And Cody and I are going to talk about this a little bit, the transition from ultra frugality into more of an abundance mindset. But we're not going to go there yet, because I just want everyone, if you're just discovering FI or you're on the beginning part of your FI journey, getting your savings rate, your gap dialed in, the fastest way to do that is get your expenses as low as possible. Then, because everyone has financial fat to cut, aka expenses. Like, everyone listening to this has subscriptions that they've had for 6 to 12 months or longer that they don't even use, or redundant. You have Netflix, you have Apple TV, you have Amazon Prime TV, you have Hulu, Disney. Do you really need all of them? So I think you got the savings rate piece up.
I do. I got it up right here. Yeah, I actually literally included the chart in my book because it was that influential.
Yeah,
I
share
remember,
with us some of the different savings rates.
So you had mentioned the 5% savings rate is going to take you 66 working years until retirement. But I remember when I first discovered this, I'm like, okay, I think I could probably live on 20% of what I'm making. So at 80% savings rate, 5.5 years. I remember I had mapped this out, spreadsheeted this all out, and that was my original plan. I didn't plan to quit corporate so fast and go into entrepreneurship. I still planned, which is funny after all these years. Now I have a book called Retire by 30. I planned to retire by 30 or before 30. I was like, based on my trajectory, what my peers are making, this guy is a couple years older than me. He's making 200K. I think I could still live on 20K a year and make 200. That's a 90% savings rate. I could probably do this in, 5 or 6 years. So I remember seeing that. So yeah, again, 80% savings rate, 5.5 years. If you have a 90% savings rate, less than 3 years. If you have a 50% savings rate, 17 working years until retirement. But I just I'd never seen it mathed out like that. And I just remember that chart blew my mind. I think you said you discovered Mr. Money Mustache first through Tim Ferriss. And that was the first article I ever read from Mr. Money Mustache. And it just, nobody had ever talked about retirement like that to me. Retirement was always an age, not a number. So seeing it mathed out in a chart like that, showing exactly how much you have to spend, what percentage of your income you have to spend to reach financial independence in a certain amount of time. I'm like, okay, I'm a good listener. If this is all I have to do, then screw it. This is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to live on 20% of my income, save 80%, and I'll be able to retire in 5.5 years.
100%. Yeah. So I've shared this story before, and I told you before we hit record, I'd share it. In 2017, around July of that year, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, Mr. Money Mustache was a guest on Tim Ferriss's podcast. And up until that point, I'd never heard anyone speak about money the way he did. And I didn't do anything with that information. I was just intrigued, and I parked it in the back of my mind. But then later that year, I was working with a tax accountant, and I was cleaning up my taxes because I was 6 years behind on my taxes. And I decided I was going to Google Mr. Money Mustache for inspiration to keep me motivated to get my taxes cleaned up. And the first article I stumbled upon was the shockingly simple math behind early retirement. And we'll put that article in the show notes so you can read it. Very short article, but it's so easy to understand. Similar to Cody, my mind exploded, and I thought to myself, fucking A, if I'd known this when I was working in the nightclub business, I'd already be a millionaire. And then I decided that one, financial independence was my top goal in life. And then secondly, the way I was going to get there was getting my savings rate as high as possible. And I originally, when I discovered financial independence at the end of 2017, I thought it would take me 10 years or more. But then as I started going down the journey, I recognized, because I was tracking my savings rate, it was getting higher and higher and higher over the months. And then I made it a game to see if I could get it to 80 to 90%. And I did. And that's how I got to financial independence in 3 years, from when I discovered financial independence at the end of 2017, which I was $80,000 in debt, and then went to millionaire in 2 years. And then somewhere between year 2 and 3, I hit 1.5 million, which was my original fine number. And then by year 3, I was a multimillionaire. And this is very similar hyper speed path to financial independence. Cody did it through entrepreneurship. I did it through a sales job, corporate. He did it in his 20s. I did it in my mid 30s. So the thing I love about Cody's story and my story and James Lowry's story, who James has been on the show twice as well, he did it through real estate. I did it through corporate sales gig. Cody did it through entrepreneurship plus real estate. And it doesn't matter what age you are. So even if you're 50 years old, 60 years old, if you buckle down and get serious about it, you can go nuts like me, Cody, and James, and do it in 3 years. Or you can go at a more leisurely pace and do it in 7 to 10 years, or even 15 to 20. There's no right speed. But what I want the audience to know is that this book, Retire by 30, and the strategies within it work no matter what age you are. And it's kind of similar to the choose your own adventure. You can go at it the way you want, that is the most fun and exciting, and you can go at it at the speed that is most enjoyable for you. So on that note, while I'm thinking about it, I do have a savings rate tracker, fitrichlifecoaching.com/tracker. It's free. You could also just use Monarch Money, unaffiliated. It tracks your savings rate for you, but Monarch Money does cost a certain amount per month, or it's cheaper if you do it per year, but it will automatically calculate it for you. Cody didn't mention that he's spreadsheeted all this shit out. I never used a spreadsheet. So those of you who are intimidated by spreadsheets, you don't need to be a spreadsheet nerd to get to financial independence. Literally all I did is I kept a Apple Note on my freaking phone. And at the end of the month, I would go into what was back then Personal Capital, which is now called Empower Retirement, because Empower acquired Personal Capital. And I would get my income, get my expenses. I'd take my income minus my expenses, whatever that number was. Let's say I made 10,000, spent 5,000. So I have 5,000 left over. Then I divide that by my income, the 10,000. So that's a 50% savings rate. And I just, each month at the end of the month, I would calculate that percentage and write it in my Apple Note and literally the goal was, okay, let's beat it next month. And that's how I got to 5. It wasn't this elaborate spreadsheet thing. It was just focusing on the gap, the golden metric, your savings rate. And Cody did it, got there in 3 years. I did it, got there in 3 years. I don't know if James tracked his savings rate or not, but he did real estate and got there in 3 years. And then Cody and I have a ton of friends who did it in 5, 10, 15 years or more. And it doesn't matter when you discover financial independence, it's possible for you.
I love that.
So go ahead.
I think something that's just worth talking about, if you're going to bring this up, maybe we're just on the same wavelength here, but like maybe talking about how my expenses were so low. Because obviously it's one thing to say, oh, I had this massive gap, but it's like, okay, then how the heck were you spending $2,000 a month? And I, unlike you, like I still went out to eat and stuff. I was still doing stuff. I was extremely frugal, but I feel like I was not depriving myself. I made it a game. It doesn't sound like you were depriving yourself, but you said you wouldn't go
I
out to
made
eat
it
for
a
three
game
years.
too. And we can contrast the crazy shit we did to get to our savings rates.
So I am a huge fan of optimizing what I call the big three, and that's housing, transportation, and food. The average American spends 67% of their monthly paycheck on those three categories. So a lot of people will be like, oh, cut out Starbucks, or I know we were talking about this earlier. Sorry to throw you under the bus, but like cut out Netflix. And those do help. But like if you can, okay, let's say you cut out Starbucks and Netflix. Starbucks is $5 a day, Netflix is $20 a month. Like both of those together might be $200 a month. Now, contrast that with someone who decides to go after one of the big three. They go after housing. So, like, here's a real scenario. A lot of my friends, right after school, they moved out to Boston, and Boston's a high cost of living city. So, I had friends who were spending $2,500 a month to live in like a one bed or a studio apartment. Me and Lauren, my wife, on the other hand, we house hacked. So what we did, I'm actually still living in one of our house hacks now. Like this property, we live in a one bed, one bath. Next to us is a four bed, two bath attached to 600 square feet of office space. We bought it all together. It's like one property. But what we did was we rented out all of that. We just live in the one bed, one bath. We were bringing in $2,500 a month in like top line. After all expenses were said and done, we were making just about like between $700 to $800 a month. So like we're making $700-800 a month from this place, while other people were spending $2,500 a month. Like think about that delta. It's like a $3,300 difference. We're taking in like call it $800 a month. They're spending $2,500 a month. Like if you don't optimize any of your other expenses and just do something like house hacking, you're going to be in a completely different financial situation. Same thing with the car. And again, like we're not living in a storage unit. Like from the outside, like we could just be renting this place and people are like, oh, Cody and Lauren rent that place. So, you know, whatever, that's normal. But like, again, so from the outside, it doesn't look like we're doing anything crazy. Our house is nice. It's just a smaller one bed, one bath, whatever. Same with the car stuff. Like I still drive a paid off Nissan Frontier that I've had for a while now. And I could have totally upgraded my car and be driving something fancy for like the past couple of years. I mean, ever since I hit FI and during my fire journey, but I didn't. Like when I got that $80,000 per year job, I had a lot of other friends who studied finance as well. And what did they do? Right when they started making real money, they started leasing or, you know, bought a brand new car. And now they have a $700-800 per month car payment. The average car payment just went over $750 per month in America for a new car. Craziness. On the food front, I was pretty intentional with like our grocery shopping. You know, I'd make a list, I would stick to the list. So we were covered there. And then we would still go out to eat and go to the bar sometimes with friends. But as I mentioned before, like people might go out, order an app, an entree, a dessert, finish half of it. Maybe they take it home, maybe not. Lauren and I would split like an app and an entree. So we'd still go out, hang out with our friends. We'd order a water. Other people might order something else. Or going out to the bar, like we would kind of hang at the house and pregame a little bit. And so we would be spending less money out on drinks. So like no matter what it is that you want to do, like I don't want people again to think that this is a path of deprivation. Like you just have to be a slightly more creative and make slightly different choices. From the outside, we didn't look like we were doing that different things from our peers. But if you took a one peel behind the curtain and saw like what our finances looked like, it's like, oh, these guys are making $800 a month from housing. They have zero car payments. They're just paying for gas and insurance. And when they go out to eat, they're spending like half of what other people are spending when they go out to eat or go to the bar. So like all those things together, optimizing those big three was like a multi-$1,000 per month gap that we were creating without even tackling some of the littler things like and there's that book by David Bach, The Latte Effect. And it's about like, cutting out your coffee to hit financial freedom. I completely reject that. Like you're not hitting financial freedom by cutting out your coffee. It's about optimizing the big things. That's what's really going to move the needle.
100%. And that's exactly what I did. And I did it in a different way. So essentially, I lived in the cheapest rental home my wife could stand.
I love
So
that.
Cody house hacked, which is he purchased a property and rented out a portion of that property. I could have, at the time when we lived in Menlo Park, Cody actually came to the house when he visited Stanford. Took
The
him
mango
and
house, right?
grapefruit.
Grapefruit. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, giant fucking grapefruits. You and Grant took a bunch of grapefruits. But anyways, it was the shittiest house, dead serious, in a really nice neighborhood. And when I discovered FI, I recognized the power of growing my income, and I aggressively grew my income from, I can't remember exactly where I started, but I was probably making 100, 150. Discovered FI that year, made, I think, close to 400,000. Then the following year made 700, over 700,000. And then the following year, 888,000. And instead of upgrading to a nice ass expensive house, I asked my wife if we could stay in this shitty rental so that we could get to financial independence a whole lot faster. And bless her, she was down for that because she wanted to support my dream of financial independence. And I also chose, as I mentioned earlier, to not eat out at restaurants for 3 years. Now, here's the nuance. I didn't tell my wife she had to stop eating out at restaurants. I just said to her, I don't care if you go out to restaurants, but my highest excitement right now is investing as much money as possible every month so I can get us to financial independence as fast as possible. So I'm not going to eat out, but I don't care if you do that with your friends, and the money that you earn, you can use for that. And that worked great for us. And similar to Cody, this was fun as fuck for me. This was a giant fucking game. I was not upset that I was living in this crappy rental. I was having the time of my life doing picnics and doing crazy shit on the food front, like taking free office meals, the leftovers, home. So I would have even less expenses on my groceries. And when I discovered FI, I was driving a Range Rover, which was a leftover piece of my time in the nightclub business because I had to have a fancy car and look like I'd made it. And when I discovered FI, I started tracking my money, realized that over the last 2 years, I'd spent over $7,000 on repair and maintenance on the Range Rover. And I said to myself, fuck this. That's a used car right there. So I sold the Range Rover, got a 2012 Toyota Prius, which I still drive to this day as a multimillionaire. And I did all sorts of other random shit. I stopped buying books and got a library card. I negotiated down my car insurance and internet, sold random shit on Facebook Marketplace. But similar to Cody, the first things I focused on were the big three. Housing, which I think by and far, if you can get your housing dialed, you can almost forget about all the rest. If you can get that one super dialed, if you can house hack, you could eat out restaurants multiple times a week and drive a fancy car, and you'll still get the financial independence super fast if you actually make money through your living like Cody did. But after I did all that, because it was a big game for me, then I went through, okay, I got the big three handled. Now I'm going to do all these other ones. You know, I was probably spending a few $1,000s a year on buying books because I love to read. A few $1,000s a year, books are free at the library. Now I buy books again, but I still go to the library even now. I still buy books. I bought Cody's book, True Story.
Thanks,
I didn't
man.
just have him send me a free copy because I'm all about supporting my friends. And I have a digital copy that he sent me for free, and I'm going to donate this to my library after this interview so that now my library has a copy the Santa Cruz County libraries have a copy of this book if they don't already have a copy. But I think just to put a pin in it, if you don't optimize the big three, you're essentially I don't know what the term for it is, but you're wasting the majority of your energy because it doesn't matter how many coupons you clip or how many coffees you skip if you don't get the big three optimized.
That was a good rhyme.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I don't know if you had debt, but I liked your view on debt in the book about it not being about shame and more being about something that you just need to take care of. But give me your thoughts on the listeners who have debt, because I had $80,000 of debt when I started my FI journey. What are your views on debt?
So fortunately, I did not really ever have debt. I was going through college through scholarships and then what wasn't covered by scholarships and grants. I split three ways between myself, my mom, and my dad. And it was a very small bill. I went to a state school. The closest I've been to debt was probably helping my wife Lauren pay down her student loans. She had like 22,000, and we were able to kind of knock those out in like I think it was like a year or something like that. But debt is just like I don't know. It's like anything else. I think people have this weird stigma around debt. People don't talk about money in general, but it's just like anything else. Like set up a system, see how long it's going to take you to pay it down, put it on autopilot, and then that debt is going to get deleted. So I have a kind of rule of thumb because people will be like, "Oh, should I invest first or should I pay off my debt first?" And it completely depends on the interest rate and what type of debt that is. If you're someone with thousands and thousands of dollars in credit card debt, that's like 20, 25%. My gosh, pay that down as fast as humanly possible before you even like start investing. Now, if you just have like maybe you have student loan debt that's like 5, 6, 7, 8%. Maybe you have a car debt that's like 5, 6, 7, 8%, whatever. I would say you can like split your time between investing and paying down your debt. I think for me, like if you have something over 10%, that's like, okay, the house is on fire, pay this debt off as fast as possible. But things that are like sub 10, like I still think that people should be investing during their kind of debt freedom journey. Did you split yours, Justin, when you were getting out of that 80,000? Like, were you still investing during the same time you were paying down that debt?
I was. And the reason I was, and I share this with my coaching clients, is because starting to invest in index funds is really what gave me the motivation to crush my debt.
Mm.
Because what I did is I went to a compound interest calculator, and there's a ton of them for free online. I still to this day play with compound interest calculators, and I just put in $100 a month at 10% interest per year and looked at what that's going to be in 40 years. And my mind
It's insane.
was like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
That's only $100 a month. And so then I got so stoked to crush my debt so that I would have more money to invest, so that I could increase that compounding exponential growth. And so I agree with you. I think if people have debt, even if you have a ton of high interest debt, start investing $25 a month.
Yeah.
To just start to build the habit of being an investor and to start to transform your identity from being someone in debt to being someone who's an investor. And I think there's so much power in building the right habits and stepping into the right identity that is highly underestimated. Now, similar to Cody, I do think you should get aggressive about any debt that is over 10%. But I'm also a big believer in the debt snowball because money is such an emotional journey that if you're in debt, the debt snowball is just paying off the smallest balance first. And that might not be the one with the highest interest, but I think it's such an emotional win for somebody who's been in debt for a long time. I was in debt basically from my teenage years until my early 30s. So it was felt like a ball and chain just weighing me down forever. And to get a debt paid off feels so good, and then it gives you energy and motivation to pay off the next debt. And so I recommend to most of my clients do the debt snowball, because it gives you that emotional win, and that gives you momentum to crush the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. Whereas mathematically, it always makes sense to pay off the highest interest one, and that's the debt avalanche. But I think humans, we're such emotional creatures that it's even though mathematically it's better to pay the highest interest first, I think emotionally, until you have a lot of momentum, you should focus on just clearing as many different balances as possible. And the fastest way to do that is start with the smallest balance and then move to the next smallest, and so on and so forth. So, um, before we talk about investing, if we even talk about it, because we kind of covered it, we can probably actually talk about investing. Invest in real estate, build a business, and or do real estate, or a combination of all three. You can listen to the first episode with me and Cody on my show, episode number 2, if you want to hear my shitty mic and hear more about that. What I really want to talk about is mentors and networking, because when I met you showed up with a mentor. And mentors have completely changed my life and my ability to make money, build wealth, and create a life I absolutely love. So tell me about the role of mentors in your life and networking, and specifically the angle of networking I want you to talk about, because I know this about your journey, but other people don't, is how you went to these FI events at such a fucking young age.
All right, loaded question. I like it though, because mentors and networking played such a huge part in my FI journey and just my life journey. So yeah, I showed up at that event in Stanford with Grant Sabatier, author of Financial Freedom, and he was a huge mentor for me. Like, he shattered so many of these glass ceilings that I had put on myself and just things that I thought about life. Like, I remember at one point I was doing like some freelance work for him on the road, and he was covering all my expenses and giving me all these awesome opportunities. I remember he had made like 50 grand or something from 4 guest posts from this big financial company. And like, it just broke my brain. I'm like, wait, they're paying you $50,000 to post on your site 4 times about their company. It just didn't make sense at all. So I am just such a huge fan of getting in the room with people who are doing way better and bigger things than me, breaking my frame and forcing me to up level, and hopefully at someday try to match those people. So that was huge. It wasn't just Grant; it was some of these other FI events. Like, the first time FI became real for me, I'd listened to all the podcasts, I'd watched YouTube videos, I'd read books, and it still kind of felt this abstract thing. I never really met anyone in real life. Like, none of my family knew about it. My friends didn't know about it. Nobody talked about this in school. But I went to an event in early 2018 called Camp Fi, and I met real people who had retired when they were in their 20s, 30s, 40s. And just literally shaking hands with these people, looking them in the eye, hearing their stories, I'm like, I can do this. It was like such a freeing moment. And going back to what you talked about with identity, it just made me so much more confident that like I could do this. This is a real thing. These are real people doing this. And so if you're not doing this already, get in rooms, and even metaphorical rooms. Like, you're in a room right now with me and Justin. You might be in the gym, you might be on your commute, but like, you're in a room with us right now. We're talking about these ideas, we're sharing numbers, we're talking about investing and paying off debt and the gap and all these things. Like, get in rooms, physical or not, with people who are doing things that you want to do, and you will just slowly start to gravitate and emulate the things that they're doing, and then your journey to whatever will become faster. This doesn't just work for finance. Like, if you want to become more fit, hang out with people who are fitter than you. It's not rocket science. And so yeah, that's what I did. I was like, just constantly reaching out to people. I would offer my time up for free. I would just be curious, like how the whole thing happened with Grant and the book tour. I had approached him at FinCon 2018, this big financial conference for money nerds who create content online. And I'm like, hey man, like, I had already read his book, and, or sorry, I had not read his book. I'd read his blog, Millennial Money. And I knew about him. There's this guy who hit FI at 30, and I was like, oh, I just want to learn from him. So I like went up to him like, hey, I'm Cody. I'm 22. I basically just want to learn from you. Like, I'll do anything. Just like give me a task. I'll make sure it gets done or whatever. Guy blows me off a couple times, but on the third try, I hit him up, and he finally answers, and he's like, oh yeah, man, sorry, my inbox is crazy. I get so many emails. But then a whole book tour comes out of it, and now we've been friends, and he's been a mentor forever. But I was just offering myself up left and right, giving free work, just seeing how I could help other people. And it usually came back tenfold. Like every time that I've, not every time, but most times that I've offered myself, whether it was my time, my expertise, whatever, usually I just get it back in droves. And that's happened so many times with so many of my different businesses. My other business, Gold City Ventures, with my friend Julie Berninger. She was also from the fire space. I hit her up. I kind of identified her as an A player. I'm like, this girl can hustle. Like, I listened to her on a podcast. She was just a go-getter, grinder, entrepreneur, making a bunch of money, saving a bunch of money. We ended up starting a multi-seven-figure business together. Like, I feel like I just learned to kind of flex the muscle of like asking and just like introducing myself. A lot of people never they fear the word no, so they never really put themselves out there and send the message or shake the hand or say hello to the person at the event. But like, and honestly, I probably don't give this guy enough credit, but there was a guy who was like the head of the finance club when I was a freshman at UMass Amherst. Again, I joined like every single club that you could possibly be a part of. And part of our homework was we had to just reach out to three people every day on LinkedIn. This could be someone who's a couple of years older than us. This could be someone who's in a senior role at a company, but we just had to reach out to three people and just like try to get on the phone with them and learn from them and get people to mentor us in any way, shape, or form possible. So like I learned rejection fast. I mean, 10% of people would answer me. And then of those 10%, like another 10% of those 10% would actually ever hop on a phone call with me. But by the end of college, I had reached out to like over 1,000 people. I had a spreadsheet actually that I kept track. I'd reached out to like over 1,000 people, just like random people in industries or jobs or careers that I found interesting. So I know it's a very long-winded answer, but it was just like kind of getting over the fear of rejection, talking to interesting people, offering myself up for free, saying, how can I be of service? Not, hey, I want X, Y, or Z from you. Like, I want to give to you first, and then I will receive later on, hopefully. And again, it doesn't work out every single time, but just, yeah, giving first. I know there's an awesome book called The Go Giver. Check that out if you haven't already. But giving first without any expectation of something in return has just worked so well for me. And I don't think I would be in the position I am today without all these amazing mentors that I reached out to. Some of them just completely on a whim.
Crazy how similar our stories are, because I went to my first camp FI in 2018 as well.
Yeah.
And again, I'm 14 years older than Cody. Cody's 30, I'm 44. And going to Camp FI and starting my own financial independence meetup group is a huge reason I got to financial independence so fast. And it's the same reason, one of the driving forces behind the fact of why Cody got there so fast. So shout out to Stephen Boyer, who's the organizer, but you can go to campfi.org. There's campfis all over the US and now international. And there's something undeniably powerful about meeting people in real life who are already financially independent or almost there. And at Camp Fi, you'll meet a ton of them. There's also the Economy Conference. I just went to it for the first time. It's basically 500 to 600 financial independent people, many of them who've reached financial independence, others that are on the way. And those of you who are on the content creator journey, you can go to FinCon. Cody and I hung out there last year together in person. So networking, getting mentors is such a powerful amplifier to your FI journey. Many of the listeners who've been listening to the show for a long time know that I got sales mentors. And that's when I went from making 100 grand to making 400, 700, $800,000 is when I got sales mentors who taught me how to earn at that level. It's how I started an online coaching business that did 6 figures in the first year. Is I got a business coach who had already done what I wanted to do. So make sure you get in the right rooms. Sometimes you pay to get in those rooms. Sometimes you go out of your way, meaning you purchase a ticket to Camp Fi and book a flight, or you purchase a ticket to economy and book a flight. It is going to pay you back so many ways. And then I just want to share a recent mentor story. So JL Collins has become a really good friend and mentor. He's the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Simple Path to Wealth, which is an amazing book that Cody and I both love. But he came on my podcast 2 different times. Then he randomly emailed me and said, "Hey, can I pick your brain about some fitness stuff? Will you meet with me over Zoom?" And I didn't say, "Yes, it's going to cost you
Yeah.
$800 to meet with me for an hour." I said, "Absolutely. Here's some times that work for me. Let me know that what works for you." Did a phone 1 hour, actually it was a 2 or 3 hour Zoom call with him, just answered all of his fitness and health questions. And then at the end of that, he was like, "Do you want to do this again in another week or two?" And I said, "Absolutely." And ever since, we meet a couple times a month over Zoom, and now he's my friend and mentor. And I just gave, and he just told me, and I'm bragging here, humble brag. He told me my newsletter is his favorite newsletter that he reads, that I could literally put that on a landing page. And I said, "When I write a book, will you write the forward to the book?" And he said, "Yes." And so I might not write a book for another couple years, but now I have in my corner a New York Times bestselling author. Cody also had a New York Times bestselling author, Grant Sabatier, in his corner. Cody's fucking written a book at age 30. So this is the power of mentors and giving. Cody did that book tour. You did it for free, right?
Yeah, we didn't even talk about this. This is crazy. Like I mentioned, like coming to this event with Grant. I lived in a van with a guy that I met at a conference and talked to online for 3 months. Like I traveled around the country with this guy for 3 months. Obviously now it's funny and we're buds, but it's like I barely knew him. I mean, I knew of him online and we had messaged and Zoom called and stuff, but like I had quit corporate America and decided, yeah, I'm gonna live in a literally a pop-up camper. It was like a VW camper. I had slept in the top area, Grant slept in the bottom area, and we drove around the entire United States, 16,000 miles, did over 75 events together. And obviously now it's like a connection that I mean you can't build that online. It's so different. The fact that I went and obviously people can't uproot their life and go travel for 3 months in a van with someone who's a couple steps ahead of you. But the fact that I did that, like it just completely altered the trajectory for my life and definitely increased the speed of my five path.
Yeah. So the last topic I want to cover before I ask you the closing question is going to be really close to home for you. I mentioned it off air. You said it was okay to bring up, but I know your dad died early in your life. And one of my theories with a lot of successful people is oftentimes the fuel for their success comes from really tough challenges that have happened in their life. So if you wouldn't mind opening it up a little bit, being a little bit vulnerable at the end of the show, we're good friends. We can cut out any of this or all of it if it doesn't go well. Uh, how did your dad and his death impact your journey to financial independence?
So to give you a timeline, a lot of people might hear early in life and thought it was like I was 10 years old. So he died pretty much right after I graduated college. So I was 21 years old when it happened. And I had, like I said before, I had discovered FI at 19. Like that's when I read the 4 Hour Work Week. So I had already introduced some of these concepts to him and told him about it and kind of like what my plan was. At this point, I already had the spreadsheet of like, I'm going to work in corporate America for, 5.5 years and call it quits. And he didn't believe me. He was like, you know what? Like, sometimes life just happens to you. You end up getting divorced or something goes wrong with the house. And he did not think that this journey was possible. And I mean, most people don't, right? It sounds insane to say that it's possible to basically quit or become work optional before you're age 30. Like, it sounds bonkers if you're someone who's out of this, who's not introduced to the fire and not in this space at all. So he didn't believe me. And so I don't know if, I mean, it definitely did fuel the fire a little bit. Like, once he passed, I'm like, all right, like, we were not battling. It's like we're getting in fights over this stuff, but he did not think that I was going to do it. He did not think that it was possible. So I think there was definitely some part of me that worked a little bit harder than I would have if he was still around, to like prove to myself and to him that, hey, like, this is possible. I can do this. Like, all these spreadsheets, all these late nights working on my side hustles, like, this stuff actually can pan out for me. Um, yeah, I mean, I've never really like psychoanalyzed myself to sit like, would I be in this position today if he was still here? I don't know. But I probably did work a little bit harder because I am that type of person that like I like to prove myself. I wanted to show him that like I got it. Like, even I had this master plan, even though you didn't think it was going to happen. I made it happen. So yeah, man. I mean, obviously it was extremely tough. Went to Australia actually like very shortly after he passed. We already had that trip all planned. Then came back. That's when I started in corporate America. Lasted for 7 months. So it was like that's kind of when it all happened. It was like right at the end of college, right before I went on this big Australia trip, and then eventually joined the workforce. But yeah, it definitely made me just work harder, and probably more like, I actually have a tattoo on my chest that says, "Life isn't permanent. Live fast." I think I probably lived more in the moment because of his death, and to just kind of embrace everything that was happening to me. Like, that's probably why I really tried not to live this deprived life, because I was like, he was pretty healthy too. Like, it was kind of a all of a sudden thing, and I really wanted to just like experience and enjoy every moment. So I think that probably shaped how I went about like living my FI journey as well. And actually, I'll talk about that in a little bit too. Like, I really intentionally kind of built my journey where I was kind of enjoying every moment, versus a lot of people in the FI community were telling me like, oh, just do your nose to the grindstone for 7 years, work as hard as you possibly can, don't spend any money. And I'm like, I think there's another way. Like, I think I can build my dream life and save a shit ton of money along the way. So, yeah, great question. I mean, I haven't really talked about it super in depth before, but it definitely fueled the fire.
Yeah, I love that you use his death as a reason to live even more. I think that's so powerful. And as you were talking about it, one of the thoughts that came to my mind was, I wonder if that was one of the things that gave you the courage to leave the corporate job after only 7 months, because you're like, fuck it. My dad died at such a young age. I'm going to go do this entrepreneurial stuff, bet on myself, even though I'm scared, even though he said I probably couldn't do it. I want to show him that I can, not in a like F you dad, but as in like, hey dad, I know you're looking down on me and proud of me. Like, I want to show you that I did do it. So thank you for going there. I know you've never, as far as I know, never talked about it online too much. But offline, I told you that for a period of time when I was young, my dad abandoned me and my brothers for a couple years, kind of just disappeared. And that, I didn't recognize that at the time. Like, I had no idea, but that drove me to get into Stanford, because he went to Stanford business school.
Mm-hmm.
And in my child mind, subconsciously, the thought was, if I get to Stanford, my dad will love me and be there for me.
Mm.
And we have a great relationship now. We've talked about all this, so this isn't anything, he would be angry about me talking about online. But I just think it's so interesting how things happen to us in our childhood with our parents that become different types of fuel for success. And I think a lot of really successful people in different arenas derive a portion of their fuel from really challenging circumstances that happened either with family members or in their youth. And I just love that you used it to build such a beautiful life, to write such an amazing book, and to not just help yourself achieve financial freedom at such an early time in your life, but to also empower anyone and everyone, no matter their age, to achieve financial freedom and build a life that they love. So thank you for sharing that. And as we land this plane, I'm going to ask you for your tips, tools, and strategies for fitness, money, and life. So what do you got for us, brother?
I'm ready, man. All right, I'll do them in that order. So fitness and health, something that I've focused on that's really helped me kind of break the barrier and push myself to the next level is competitions and or challenges. Now, if you're not a competitive person, that's fine. Like that's why I said and or challenges, but just doing hard shit like just allows you to push to that next gear. I know for me, like sometimes if I'm like not training for anything or whatever, I'm just going through the motions. I'm still doing my cardio, still making it to the gym 5 or 6 days a week, but sometimes I just feel complacent. And I recently started doing more like I just did a high rocks in Spain actually last month. For those who don't know what that is, it's like a combination of running and like these fitness and running and strength events. Um, I also did with James Lowry. Actually, we did 100K step day. So we walked 50 miles in a day. We just woke up, started at 4:30, ended at like 9 p.m. But just like doing hard shit that's like outside of the norm. It's not just like your regular gym routine or your regular running routine, whatever that looks like to you. Like that's been huge for me. So again, competitions and or challenges. You want me to just rifle through all three and then we can chat about them, or do you want to stop and talk about each one?
Let's talk about each one real quick.
Okay.
So those who follow my content know that I recently in the last year discovered pickleball. And just to double click on the competition, I fucking forgot how much I love to compete.
So fun.
Because it is insane. It taps in, and I say this all the time, competition taps into the masculine energy. And back, in ancient Greek, they did all the Olympic events together. And to compete back then actually meant to strive together. And I think that it is another source of fuel. So what I realized for myself is when I started competing in pickleball, like I don't give a fuck if I win or lose, but I want to win. And it just has tapped into this source of energy that I forgot that was such a big part of my life because I played soccer from 3rd grade to 12th grade virtually year round. And I think whether you're a man or a woman, you can tap into that energy through competition. And I love the nuance that Cody brought, like doing hard shit. Like, so whatever it is, whether you're doing a high rocks competition, doing what you say, how many miles did you walk in today? 50?
We just walked 50 miles one day. We woke up and just did our goal was 100K steps, which is roughly 2,000 steps per mile. Yeah. We're crazy.
Yeah. So that I just want to say, if you're feeling lackluster or life feels dull, go do a high rocks, start playing pickleball, decide that you're going to do 100,000 steps in a day. Just do hard fucking shit, like Cody said, and you'll discover a part of you that may have been asleep.
I love that. Shake things up. All right, money. So I have discovered that systems consistently beat willpower. So my kind of tip, strategy, tool for money is to set all of your shit on autopilot, like auto invest the beginning of every year. And this might be dependent on your financial situation and stuff, but like I have my Roth maxed out, I have my like 401k maxed out, I have my HSA maxed out, all in January. Like this stuff just happens on auto. I have like literally my whole financial life on autopilot. So regardless of whether or not I feel like investing that month or I had a good month or a bad month, like the money is just getting put into these accounts. And I think a lot of people kind of go through their life just hoping that they have the motivation or hoping that they remember to do X, Y, or Z. But like if you set up systems, you cannot fail. Like if you can, let's say you have a bag of chips in your counter, right? Like eventually one day you're going to come home and you're going to have played pickleball or you're going to whatever, and you're going to eat those chips because they're there, right? It's like, it's the same thing with money. If you can shelter your money away and not even give you a chance to indulge in that money, let's say it doesn't even make it into your bank account. Instead, it goes to your brokerage account. It goes to your 401k, your IRA, your real estate, whatever vehicle you choose. If you can set up the systems so that you don't even have the chance to indulge in that money and spend it, systems are key. So systems beat willpower. I'm a huge fan. Whatever that might look like to you, just set up a financial system on autopilot so that you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. What it makes me think about is getting back mind share or creative energy to actually do things that are going to move the needle. Because the more things you automate, especially when it comes to money, then the more mental energy you have to apply to things like making more money. And if you make more money and grow the gap, that is going to get you to financial independence infinitely faster than spending time paying your bills that could be automated or spending time manually investing that could be automated. So completely agree with you, Cody. Thank you. What do you got for life/happiness?
All right. So the life one, this is something that Lauren and I have been doing for years now. So every single month, we have a monthly meeting. We also do annual meetings at the end of every year. But in this monthly meeting, we have this bullet list. I actually pulled up my phone so I can read it off my phone for you. So we talk about money, we talk about real estate, we talk about health and fitness, we talk about travel, we talk about relationships with one another and with family and friends. We have a random category, then we have a goals for next month. And this monthly meeting has just changed our lives for the better in so many ways. Like just having that open line of communication with your significant other, making sure you're on the same page with all your different goals. And you don't have to have the exact same goals as your significant other, but like just saying them out loud and speaking them into existence. I'm not a huge like manifest, say things and they will happen to you, but I do think that there's a lot of power in just like speaking your goals into existence and reflecting on the past. And like if you like constantly say, I am going to be X, Y, or Z type of person. You talked about identity earlier. If you constantly say that, you are just naturally going to gravitate to be that type of person. So we make it an action of every single month, the end of every month. We make it a little fun thing. We'll like go on a date somewhere, or maybe we'll cook something special at home, and we talk about all these categories. And then at the end of the year, we have a 30-minute video that we record. We've been doing it since 2019, just reflecting on the year. Again, all those same categories and more, and then kind of speaking our goals for that next year into existence. We've been doing this for 7 years now. And dude, it's just like, I think the biggest reason why couples have fights and they get divorced and whatever is because it's a lack of communication. And a lot of that stems from money. We've been talking about money a lot here. Like Lauren knows exactly like where all of our money is, all the accounts we have, all the different stuff that's going on with our real estate. So like that, there's no communication barrier there. And so like, yeah, we just try to keep things as open as possible, and it's helped our relationship so much, and just helped us progress as human beings in general, hitting those goals and reflecting on past goals that we have hit or not hit.
Dude, that is fucking next level.
Thank you.
That's fit rich life marriage level habit right there. So I just want to make sure I caught that. You record a video at the end of the year reflecting on the year and setting goals, and you video record each other talking about it?
Yep, video record since 2019, so we just did our sixth one.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's been great.
Dude, seriously impressed. I'm going to have to steal that one. That is
Please
genius.
So
amazing.
Those are my three.
Thank you, brother. All amazing. I think the monthly meeting is huge because I completely agree with you. Communication. Those are the most three important things in a marriage.
In any relationship.
Yes. But especially in marriage. And it's a never ending, evolving thing that you constantly have to work at. I've been married almost 5 years. I've been with my wife for 12. I'm still working on my communication skills with her. We, as a married couple, are still working on our communication, proactively learning, trying new things, failing, making mistakes, and getting better. And it's the commitment to growing in our communication together that makes our marriage continue to get richer each year. So I totally agree with you, Cody. I think communication is key. And I believe money is, if not number one of the top reasons marriages don't work out. So I love that you brought that one up. I know you got to go because you got a dinner, but I really wanted to talk to you about life and retirement, which is the last chapter. So what I'd like to do, because I'm in year 2 of retirement from the 9 to 5, if you're open to it, I'd love to bring you back on the show and we just talk. So as an opportunity for me to reflect on being 2 years retired, and then for you to give coaching and advice to the fucking 20 and 30-year-olds who hit FI so fucking early. Like the things you did right, the things you did wrong, and what you would tell the 20 and 30-year-olds who hit FI and retire early. And I will then also reflect on my 2 years in early retirement in my 40s, what I did wrong and what I did right and what I would do better next time. Does that sound
Absolutely.
cool?
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I think the fact that I'm going to a dinner on a Monday is like the perfect juxtaposition to what I was talking about earlier. You wouldn't catch me ever going out to dinner on a Monday night during my fire journey. Never. But now
Yeah.
I'm at the point where I am spending money on going out to eat. I'm spending money on travel experiences. Like my budget per month is way higher than it was when I was during that like 3-year grind when I was going after 5, but I'm spending on the things I value.
Yeah. Amazing. So retire by 30, how to build wealth, gain freedom, and live life on your own terms. Again, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 or older, this book is great. Where's the best place for people to get it?
Retireby30book.com is probably the best place because I'm doing some fun giveaways. I won't say anything other than that, but go check it out and you can enter.
Awesome. We'll put links to that website, all your socials, etc. Cody, I'm so grateful that you've become a good friend, and thank you again for making a third appearance on the show. And thank you for everything that you do for the financial independence community, as well as just educating people on money and living a fit, rich life. Thanks for coming on the show, brother.
I appreciate you, man. And it's kind of cool to see the butterfly effect in action. Like we randomly met at that FI event in 2019, and now look at us. Now we've, we traveled, seen each other in places all around the country, hopefully all around the world, and we've had some amazing conversations. So appreciate you and your friendship, man.
Likewise, brother. Thanks for coming on the show.